Welcome to Wealth Hustle 247 podcast, your trusted guide to financial literacy, business innovation, and entrepreneurial success. Learn how to grow your wealth, make informed decisions, and turn your ideas into profitable ventures.
Hey, welcome to How to Build an Emergency Fund. Tired of living paycheck to paycheck or worrying about unexpected expenses? In this podcast, we break down practical steps to save consistently and build a fund that keeps you secure no matter what happens. Let's jump in.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're focusing on something that's incredibly common, but I think rarely mastered. And that's building a quiet, unshakable financial foundation. Our mission for this deep dive is to take the stack of source material we've gathered and really pull out a systemic guide to financial resilience.
It's so interesting because when you hear about financial failure, the media, it often points to recklessness, right? Impulsive spending.
Yeah, the flashy stuff.
Exactly. But the research we looked at, it tells a much more sobering story.
It really does. The sources are so clear on this. For most people, financial failure doesn't come from a lack of discipline. It comes from, an unforeseen intervention.
Life. Yeah.
Just life stepping in. We're talking about a massive medical deductible, a sudden job layoff you did not see coming, or a car repair that just hits you all at once. Even super disciplined people can be completely derailed by these, quote, normal emergencies.
That's the key. These events only turn from, say, a manageable problem into a financial catastrophe when that prepared buffer is missing.
So our mission today is really to unpack how to build that buffer.
Yeah.
It's the critical element that our sources call the difference between a temporary setback and a total financial breakdown.
That distinction, setback versus breakdown, that's everything. So let's start with the basics, a foundational definition. When we say emergency fund, we're not talking about, savings for a vacation.
No.
Or a house. So what is the fundamental nature of this money?
It's financial insulation.
Okay, financial insulation. Unpack that.
Think of it like padding. Padding around the essential machinery of your life. It's a buffer, and its only job is to protect your income, your investments, and, honestly, your dignity when things inevitably go wrong.
So it's purely defensive.
Purely. It's a strategic asset disguised as an intentionally dull bank account.
And its purpose is just singularly focused.
Precisely. Its core function is to help you answer one critical question. If my entire income stopped today, how long could I survive?
Just on the bare bones. Just survival expenses. Without borrowing money, without begging for help, or, and this is key, being forced to sell your assets. That survival runway, that's what we're building.
Okay, so let's get into the why. Why is this buffer so non-negotiable? I can hear listeners thinking, I have a good income, I have insurance, I have a 401k. Isn't that enough?
Right.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the consequences of not having this fund are so much more severe than people realize.
They really are. And the first reason is just acknowledging that, uncertainty is the only constant.
Yeah.
Economic downturns are cyclical. Inflation spikes. They erode your buying power. A good job today doesn't guarantee security tomorrow. I mean, we've all seen that.
We've all seen stories of like a sudden $1,500 plumbing issue that just tips a budget that was already running a little too close to the edge.
And without that $1,500, the person is immediately exposed to the absolute worst financial behaviors.
What does that look like?
It means high interest debt, credit cards, payday loans, even borrowing from family under really stressful conditions. You're forced into making these desperation-driven decisions.
Right.
The research showed that with the emergency fund in place, those exact same negative events, they become nothing more than, an irritating line item in your budget.
The sources introduce this concept of preparedness, protecting you from financial slavery.
Yeah.
That language to me was incredibly powerful.
It is powerful.
People assume high debt is the enemy, but what they're really describing is that unpreparedness is the real threat.
It is, because unpreparedness strips you of all your power. I mean, if you're facing a medical bill and you have no cash, you're forced to accept any payment term, any exploitative loan.
Or stick with a job you'd hate.
Or stick with a toxic job because you literally can't afford a single week of unemployment. You lose all your negotiating leverage.
Completely.
The fund provides genuine independence. It's the ability to say no to a terrible job offer or to walk away from a business deal that isn't serving you, all because you're not dependent on that immediate cash flow.
That's huge.
The sources give a really clear example. Someone who took a predatory loan, something like 25% APR, just to cover a $4,000 car repair.
Wow.
They basically signed away their next 3 years of financial stability for a quick fix that cash on hand would have solved completely painlessly. That right there, that's financial slavery in action.
That really puts that dignity component into sharp focus. Okay, so moving on. The second major consequence is preserving long-term wealth. People work so hard to build investments, but when they hit a wall,
They sacrifice the future for the present. It's the most common form of financial self-sabotage we see.
how so?
Without emergency savings, people torch their future. They sell off promising stocks or funds, often during a market downturn because that's when emergencies seem to happen.
The worst possible time to sell.
The absolute worst. Or they withdraw from retirement savings and they get hit with penalties and they lose all that power of compounding. The emergency fund, it's like an impervious shield. It lets your long-term assets keep growing undisturbed no matter what short-term crisis is hitting your checking account.
So it protects the whole ecosystem of your financial life, not just immediate cash.
Exactly.
And let's not forget the part that's almost impossible to quantify, but might be the most valuable of all, psychological peace.
Oh, absolutely. The research on financial stress it's damning. Knowing you have that safety net, it significantly reduces chronic anxiety. It improves sleep. It encourages rational decision-making instead of just panic.
It frees up your brain space.
It frees up your cognitive space to focus on solving the problem instead of panicking about how you're going to pay for the solution. Financial security is mental health.
So we've established it's necessary. Now for the practical mechanics, this is where the discipline really kicks in. How much should this fund actually be? Our source material was pretty clear that there's no single universal number.
Correct. It's intensely personal, but the calculation has to be based on your monthly survival expenses.
Okay, let's be super clear on that. What does that mean?
It is not your monthly income. It is definitely not your current lifestyle budget. This is the bare minimum cost of living.
So shelter, food.
Shelter, basic food, essential utilities, necessary transportation, and basic healthcare costs. Everything else, Netflix, eating out, vacation savings, all of that gets zeroed out in this survival calculation.
That survival number is the target. So once we have that figure, what's the general framework? 3 months? 6? A year?
The sources offer a tiered system, and it's based on the stability of your situation.
Okay.
So if you have a stable salary job, maybe few dependents, 3 months of survival expenses is a really solid starting goal. That handles most, unexpected car repairs or a short illness.
And when do we need to escalate that number?
If you're self-employed, if you work on commission, or if you have a larger family, you have to account for less predictable cash flow.
Right, more variables.
Way more variables. 6 months is the standard recommendation here. This buffer accounts for that natural volatility that comes with being an entrepreneur or working in sales. It gives you time to pivot during a slow quarter.
And for maximum protection, who needs that really heavy-duty buffer?
We're talking 9 to 12 months if you have, say, highly specialized skills that might take a long time to market after a job loss, or if you operate in a really fragile economic environment. For some people, especially those managing chronic health issues, 12 months might be totally non-negotiable.
The goal is always adequacy.
It's about confidence that the buffer matches your personal risk profile.
Okay, let's talk location. You called this money intentionally boring. But I have to play devil's advocate here.
Please do.
If I'm holding 6 months my survival expenses, let's say it's $30,000 in a low-interest savings account, I'm essentially guaranteeing a loss against inflation. I mean, especially right now. How do the sources justify that opportunity cost?
That is the single most important question, and it's a valid one. The material justifies it with a concept they call the mandate of boring.
The mandate of boring. I like that.
The purpose of this money is not growth. It's immediate, guaranteed capital preservation. If that $30,000 were in the stock market and an emergency struck during a 30% market crash,
Your 30 grand is suddenly 21 grand.
and your safety net has failed precisely when you needed it the most.
Okay, that makes sense. So the location of the fund has to prioritize 3 things.
3 required traits: safe, liquid, and accessible. Returns are tertiary. They're a distant third. You're basically paying a premium, that opportunity cost, for peace of mind and non-correlation to volatile markets.
So where do we keep this sacred fund? What are the best homes for it?
Highly liquid and insured vehicles. We're talking about high-yield savings accounts, which, while not beating inflation, at least offer some return or money market instruments.
And just quickly, for listeners who might be less familiar, what do you mean by money market instruments?
In simple terms, they're very short-term, very low-risk investments, often high-quality government debt. They're structured to maintain a stable value, a dollar in, a dollar out, while providing a little bit of interest. They maximize safety and liquidity.
And the worst locations.
Yeah.
What defeats the purpose?
Anything volatile or illiquid, stocks, options, crypto, individual bonds with long maturity dates, long-term fixed assets, you just cannot, under any circumstances, introduce the risk of a market downturn into your personal protection mechanism.
This is where we get tactical. Building this 3 to 12-month fund can feel overwhelming, especially from scratch. Our sources emphasize that these funds are built through habit, not abundance. So what's the 5-step plan?
Step 1 is that crucial diagnostic.
Yep.
Define your survival budget. We've touched on it, but here's the action item. Take your bank statements, categorize everything, then be ruthless. Identify what you could instantly cut if you lost your job tomorrow. That number has to be precise. It's your true north.
And step 2 addresses that inertia we talked about, the mistake of waiting for the perfect time to start.
Yes, you absolutely have to start before you feel ready. Most people wait for a raise or a bonus, but they lose the benefit of momentum and discipline.
The habit.
The habit. Consistency in saving small amounts, even just $50 a month, builds that psychological muscle. The size of the start is way less important than the commitment to the action.
Which sets the stage for step 3, the absolute cornerstone of this, automation.
Because motivation is wildly unreliable,
That's so true.
especially in personal finance. But systems are rock solid. You have to automate the transfer, set up a standing order from your checking to your emergency fund account for the day you get paid. It's the pay yourself first rule, and it removes all the emotional decision making.
You have to treat it like rent.
Treat it like rent or a loan payment, mandatory and automatic.
And this requires the fund to be in a physically separate account, right? Not just sitting in your main checking account.
Yes. The sources stress psychological distance. If your emergency fund is in the same account you use for coffee and groceries, you will inadvertently treat it as available cash. Separation reinforces its protected status.
Okay, step 4 is about using accelerators, those little windfalls.
Right. Bonuses, tax refunds, unexpected freelance income, birthday money. These are all accelerators designed to shorten your timeline.
So you just dump all of it into the fund.
No, and that's the key. The disciplined approach is not to allocate all of it, because that leads to burnout. Instead, you allocate a meaningful portion, say 50 or 60%, to the emergency fund first, and then you use the rest guilt-free.
So you get the progress without feeling deprived.
Exactly.
And finally, step 5, protecting the fund from ourselves. The key pitfall isn't the recession, it's temptation when things are going well.
That's often the case. So many emergency funds are depleted not by true disasters, but by lifestyle creep. The temptation to borrow from it for a great travel deal or home upgrade, it's powerful.
Access should be easy, but not casual.
That's the perfect way to put it. You need strict rules. The only withdrawal is for an immediate, unavoidable, and necessary expense that impacts your safety or your livelihood. Period.
Let's put this into a broader context now, especially regarding other protective layers. How does an emergency fund relate to insurance? Health, auto, home insurance, are they interchangeable?
Absolutely not, and that's a common misconception. They're deeply complementary. Insurance is designed to handle catastrophic, high-cost, low-frequency events.
The house fire.
The house fire, a major surgery. Risks that no reasonable savings account could ever cover. The emergency fund's role is to handle the financial friction points of those events.
You mean like the deductible?
The deductible, exactly. The fund pays the deductible. It handles the immediate cash needs before the insurance company processes the claim. And it covers all the small, unexpected expenses that fall below the deductible line but still require cash now. The broken washing machine, a new set of tires.
So insurance handles the big risk. The fund handles the immediate cash flow.
Together, they build resilience.
We should also talk about entrepreneurs, freelancers, anyone with a highly irregular income. Your risk profile is just different.
It demands a larger buffer. That's why we push that range up to 6 to 12 months. But there's a crucial distinction here.
Which is?
Those individuals need to establish a dedicated personal emergency fund to protect their family and a completely separate business emergency fund to protect operations.
And why is mixing those two a disaster waiting to happen?
Because if a business downturn hits and you've commingled the funds, you're suddenly using the cash earmarked for your child's health insurance to cover server costs.
Phew.
And conversely, if a personal emergency hits, you risk stripping your business of the operational capital it needs to survive the next quarter. Separation prevents a single failure point from triggering chaos in both spheres of your life.
So the business is protected and the home is stabilized.
Exactly. The business can keep generating income while the personal fund keeps the lights on at home.
So what does this all really mean for the listener in the long run? We've talked so much about defense, about protection, but what does this foundation actually empower us to do?
It empowers freedom. That's what it is. It lets you take calculated career risks, to leave that comfortable but soul-crushing job and start a business knowing you have a 12-month runway. It allows you to decline toxic, low-paying opportunities because you aren't desperate. Ultimately, the emergency fund gives you the confidence to invest in your future, knowing that a short-term crisis won't force you to derail your long-term plans.
It's the first real taste of financial freedom.
It is, because it removes desperation from your decision-making.
This has been such a critical deep dive. I mean, the essential truth we've extracted is that the emergency fund is the financial equivalent of wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
It's never going to impress your friends on social media.
Yeah.
It will often feel like stagnant money. But when life inevitably tests you, that boring separate account becomes the crucial difference between resilience and regret.
And that leads right to the final provocative thought for you to mull over as you build this foundation.
Let's hear it.
The sources conclude with this. Before chasing aggressive growth, market speculation, or luxury, you must build protection. Because wealth that cannot survive a sudden, unexpected crisis is not genuine wealth, it is merely temporary comfort.
Temporary comfort.
So start today. Build that foundation.
That's it for today's episode of Wealth Hustle 247. Be sure to follow, like, comment, and share with others. Keep pushing toward your goals, and we'll see you in the next episode.